Hello, and welcome to a new edition of Need to Know, a series of video interviews with companies who are shaping, creating, and innovating in the games industry today, and whose work will have a huge impact going forward into the future. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Chris Weavill, co-founder and CEO of Hertzian, the creators of Player XP. Hi, Chris. How are you doing today? You okay?
Very good, thank you. Great introduction. Yes, very happy to be here. Very happy to share some of my knowledge on games industry and AI and any other topics we want to talk about today.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I'll get you to introduce yourself in just a moment, but for our viewers' benefit, as Chris just said, we'll be talking about AI and some ethics surrounding AI as well, which would be fascinating. So, Chris, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what Player XP is?
Yeah, so I co-founded Hertzian, the creators of Player XP, in 2015. Player XP is an artificial intelligence tool which helps collect and analyze all of the community market player chatter data that's online in forums on places like Reddit and TikTok and social medias. We collect all of the player engagement data and chatter, and we analyze all of that using the artificial intelligence algorithms that we developed specifically for the games industry. And then once we've analyzed all of that data, we're able to then tell the big publishers and the studios what the community and what the market is saying about the games that they make. Because this might be surprising to a lot of people, but the studios and the publishers, when they develop these games, they don't always know why they're successful or why they're failing. So we try to share some insights to the studios on kind of what's being said and spoken about their titles.
Absolutely, demystification. I like it. So, what sparked your interest in artificial intelligence, and how did you embark on this journey?
So I guess we have to go back to the first day of the reasons why we created Player XP. And anyone that kind of operates in the games industry will remember the days where Metacritic, you lived or died by those reviews. And me and my business partner, Andrew, felt that there was too much kind of weight or too much influence based on these Metacritic reviews. So the studio would spend a lot of time and energy and effort making these amazing games, and then Metacritic would review it, where you'd have a few critics play the game and pass judgment on it, and the judgment from Metacritic would determine whether your game was successful or not, basically. And that is completely irregardless of what the community or the players might feel or think about the game. So you might have hundreds of thousands of players who love the game, but because a few people, a few critics have reviewed it negatively, the game doesn't do very well, and people don't get bonuses and they don't get more funding, and the game basically dies out. It's a very similar story what you see in the Hollywood with the movies, where you'll get a few notorious critics, negatively review a film, but actually Rotten Tomatoes, people love the film. So we wanted to create Player XP to give a fairer, more accurate representation of what the market and what the community actually feel about the game. So to set out to do that, we needed to collect the opinions of all of the players playing the games and leaving their opinions on various different online platforms. And then we needed to analyze all of that data. Now, 2015, AI wasn't really a thing, not like it is today, where everyone is talking about ChatGPT and all these AI tools. Back in those days, it was called natural language processing, or NLP for short. And so we were looking at NLP solutions to analyze the hundreds of millions of comments or reviews that players were leaving. And we had to use those NLP solutions to analyze all of that data, because the solutions that existed at the time were really rudimentary. People weren't really working on AI. It wasn't really even known as AI. No one called it AI or machine learning. So that was the kind of introduction to AI for us back in the day, where we needed to start using those solutions to analyze all of the data that we had, because traditional tools and systems just weren't robust enough. So we got into the AI space very, very early.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess ultimately, those big scores don't pick up on the nuances that audiences can find with games. Interesting. Okay. And you mentioned that you've been working with AI for for quite a long time. I believe sort of at least around coming up to 10 years or so. I mean, what's it like being seeing how I guess the letters A and I have become such massive letters for the world in the last year or so?
Yeah, it's an interesting, from my perspective, 10 years ago, AI was a thing, and people were developing in it and people were working with it, but it just wasn't in the mainstream market. I mean, open AI and plenty of, I mean, even if you think of Google as a platform, Google have been developing AI solutions for decades, multiple decades, but people just didn't really talk about it or understand it. And AI exists in a lot of tooling that we use, day to day. And people are more familiar with tools like Grammarly, and AI is all built into that software. It was around more than people realized, and it's only now I think people understand what AI is. And actually, it's not Terminators or robotics necessarily, but it's systems doing things in the background to make people's lives easier or provide insights or results. In the commercial space, people were very frightened of it. People didn't want to use it because they didn't understand it, and also people were scared for their jobs being replaced. So it's gone kind of 180 now, where now everybody wants to use AI and everyone's an AI expert. My LinkedIn's just absolutely filled with. It's funny because as CEO of an AI company, quite often people will reach out to me offering AI services and AI training, and it's just that's the market we're in today.
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to see what you feel the most exciting developments or breakthroughs are in the field at the moment, considering all the, I guess, chatter that's going on.
Yes, there is a lot of chatter. You almost need AI to filter down all of that chatter. I think there's a lot of different types of AI. There's like generative AI creating content, and then there's AI built into robotics, which they do a lot of things. I think a lot of the benefits and the utility in AI come from making things, speeding up processes, making things more efficient, and what we call kind of the easy wins. Developing AI solutions and implementing them into either commercial products or even kind of consumer products for everyday life. It just makes things easier for everybody, and that has a whole host of questions around job security and those types of elements, which increase a lot of fear. But in a lot of ways, I think probably one of the best things of AI for people more generally is in the health sector. What AI can do in health and how it can improve quality of care, quality of medicine, development of medicine. I think a lot of the market, I think people don't necessarily realize how far AI actually goes into a lot of these development processes to actually create medicines. They use AI algorithms to speed that process up and to do further research. It's not just, oh, this till in the supermarket is now automated, and now they don't need people to do tills because everything just does it itself, or robotics for Tesla creating cars. It's also a lot of computation and a lot of research and a lot of elements that people probably don't think about day to day because they don't see it in the marketplace.
I guess there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, I suppose. I mean, you touched upon sort of job security earlier, but I'd be quite interested to hear what your sort of thoughts are on sort of ethical considerations in AI development, and I guess sort of what steps someone can take to ensure a bit of a more responsible sort of AI practices, perhaps.
I think anyone listening now are going to be leaning right into the screen to hear this.
Absolutely.
Job security is such a massive topic, and I actually get asked it quite a lot, both in my in my job, but also if I'm at the pub with friends, people will ask me if their job is going to get taken over by AI. I released a controversial article on LinkedIn recently, and I said, newsflash, big shocker, AI will create jobs. And what I mean by that is AI isn't as scary as everyone thinks and isn't going to just destroy and replace everyone's jobs. AI will have a displacement. So there are a lot of jobs where particularly ones that are quite laborious and require a lot of time and effort to do tasks, AI will most certainly come in and replace those duties. If the role in its entirety is just a very heavy laborious task, then 100% an AI system will come in and replace that role entirely, because it's a laborious task, much like you see in supermarkets with self-checkout tills. But what people don't necessarily realize with AI systems is that narrow AI works best when it's pointed specifically at a task or domain. And what you're going to need whenever you have a computer system, whenever you have a piece of software, you're going to need experts in that field to manage, monitor, and use those tools. So by and large, what's going to happen is that AI systems are going to get better. They're going to grow. They're going to get integrated more into everyday life and business. And then the people in the business that, for example, if we talk about copywriting and marketing, AI tools will be introduced. They will displace and disrupt that process because they'll make it more efficient and faster, and they'll produce copywriting. But you will still need somebody who has a degree in marketing, who has the experience in marketing, to use that AI system and to check it, to go, okay, I need to make sure that this copy that this AI system's done is efficient. So the change will be, rather than writing it from scratch, and this has very much already happened with ChatGPT, even though ChatGPT is not specifically made for that, you will just be there to refine and utilize. And if we take medicine as another example, there'll be technologies that will be used probably in surgery. They won't completely replace surgeons. They'll be there to kind of empower and help surgeons, help the people with the domain knowledge. So people should continue to pursue the industry that they want to be in and the role they want to be in. They should continue to learn what's important in that area. But alongside that, to mitigate the risk of AI replacing the components of their role, everybody should take an interest in what's happening with AI. They shouldn't ignore it. Try to consume, news and data and information about it. You don't have to be a developer or programmer. You don't have to be, a technical wizard. You just need to take an interest in what is AI and what's happening. So, interviews like this is really useful. Listening to AI podcasts and just trying to be abreast of what's happening, and don't be too fearful with the changes that it's going to bring in, because the market's really loud at the moment with AI, but it will take some time before it really starts to disrupt. People should continue to pursue the industries that they're in and that they enjoy, and not just try to knee-jerk react to, I'm going to try and learn all AI now. Just continue with your marketing, continue with the areas that you're working in, because you'll have to, you'll be the one that builds the AI tool and uses it and needs to understand like how to audit it and things like that.
Absolutely. We'll bring it back to the product itself, the AI product. I mean, how did Player XP evolve, and I guess why did you choose Sentiment as your AI project?
So going back to the reason we kind of created it, we wanted to create effectively a critic score for every individual player, and you would aggregate all those scores together. So you would have a critic score or NPS score or Player XP score of what the entire community or market says. So you would have a keener understanding that my product or my service is either good or bad based on what the market says or what the users say. So to do that, we needed to develop a sentiment system. And the sentiment systems are tricky because, particularly in the UK British, we're very sarcastic. So when you're analysing text data and someone's being sarcastic, you have to develop a system which is able to understand sarcasm. And I contributed code to that system, and I can tell you now it's very difficult. But the sentiment system that we developed, we trained it on data, which is a core component of all AI systems, specifically from the games industry. Because if you think of the games industry, there's a lot of discussion around killing people or dying, and all of those things day to day is a very negative terminology. But for games, it can be perceived as positive. So we needed to train it on games data. So when we're analyzing sentiment, we're looking for things that are good, we're looking for things that are bad. It's representative of actually what it means in the sense of games. So then when we're telling studios that have first person shooters and it's all about killing people, that their game's not terrible because there's lots of death in it, and actually the game can be really fun and people can really enjoy it, and it can still have death in it. So sentiment is a core component of determining in all industries everywhere how your product or service is performing. It's kind of a bit of a foundational benchmark for judging how the criteria of your success. If you just take hospitals, for example, people have sentiment of their quality of care they're receiving, or if they're in hospital or in a trust, is it a good experience, is it a bad experience? You think most surveys that you ever fill out that you get given is always, is this a good experience? Rate it 1 out of 10, smiley face, sad face. So it's a kind of cornerstone of the analysis that we do for everything.
Okay, interesting. So I guess it'd be fascinating to hear what trends or lessons you've learned from this data that would be beneficial to the games industry.
That's a really good question. It's a very difficult question to answer actually as well, because I just this morning was talking to a studio that have released a really successful game, but there's plenty of negative sentiment in the data that they have. And one of the challenges about having a product or a service that has a huge community behind it is that you can't please everybody. And it's a really difficult balance to strike when it comes to making changes to your product or service, or your game in this sense, based on what the sentiment is and what the community is. Because another component of this is that your community doesn't necessarily know what's good for the game. So they can make thousands of suggestions and they will demand that changes are made. But those demands are not always well informed, and they might not understand why those things have not been implemented. There might be a technical reason, there might be a commercial reason. In some cases, there might even be a legal reason why they can't. But your players, your consumers won't necessarily know that. So what the data does is it gives you the ability to make judgments and changes to your game based on what the community is saying, and you can cherry pick the data, cherry pick the insights from the data to determine what is a good decision and what is a bad decision when it comes to the development of your game, updates or patches. You've got bugs and issues in the game. If you release a new game and you have 100 bugs in it, how do you determine which bug is the most impactful, which needs to be fixed first? If you it could be that you fix 90% of the bugs, but you fix all the wrong ones, and actually your community don't care about those issues. The bugs they cared about were the 10 that you didn't do. So these kinds of data insights, it gives studios the ability to make more informed decisions and increase their revenues by increasing community satisfaction engagement. If you think Steam is a really good example, and you live and die by your Steam reviews. Well, if you can aggregate all of the Steam reviews together, understand what the issues are, fix those issues, and then go back to your community and say, we fixed the issue, we've listened to what you said, and you're super positive and responsive. The player will turn a negative Steam review into a positive Steam review. And suddenly your game shoots up and you get more sales, and they talk to their friends and they say how much of a good game it is and how the studio was listening and actioning the content they're leaving on Steam. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use it, but it can definitely be generate revenue, and it can also help mitigate risks and problems which can come up with the game as well, and making decisions.
Okay, interesting. So can you sort of bring to mind any examples from the industry in terms of I guess kind of almost 180 changes or significant changes that have been implemented off the back of Player XP's services?
Yeah, so there's plenty of examples that I can't share because of the nature of the confidentiality.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there is a really interesting insight that I can share, which we shared recently in a Player XP workshop with studios and publishers. And it was around apology letters, actually. And it's the idea that we have data that categorically proves and says that if a game is doing very poorly, you have 2 months basically to fix any of the mistakes or errors in that game before your community effectively falls off a cliff and is a super negative sentiment and nearly unrecoverable. So the data says that once you've launched a game, you've effectively got 2 months to fix it before you've lost the community forever. And one of the useful insights that came out of that was apology letters, because what tends to happen is 2 months go past, the game falls off the cliff edge, and you've lost the community forever because they're just beyond the point of return because they're so angry and passionate. The natural response is to produce an apology letter from the studio to say, we're really sorry, we made a mistake, we kind of admit it, etc., etc. The data again categorically shows from Player XP that apology letters do not help. Apology letters make the community angrier and more upset. So you think you're doing a good thing, you're taking accountability, you're owning your mistakes, you're sharing vulnerabilities with your community, you're sorry for the mistakes. Don't do it, basically, because it just makes them more upset. And what the data shows is that they don't care for apology letters, they care for real change and real improvements. So don't spend your time writing apology letters or thinking about apologies or trying to douse the fire with community management kind of engagement. Just fix the problem, because that's all they care about. The more you can show to demonstrate that you're listening and actually making changes, your sentiment for the game and the community will go up. So don't do apology letters. You've got 2 months to fix the problems that you might have in the community or the game. I think they're probably the most kind of helpful, impactful data points that we had recently, which all studios and publishers could use to their advantage, rather than kind of looking at one game and then saying they did this thing in this one game and it was absolutely awful. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I guess there's certain things that you don't necessarily know off the bat, really, unless you delve in super deep into these things, and I guess that's ultimately what your product does.
Yeah, you've got millions of interactions. You just can't go through all of the data. So you can have an army of community managers, but there's just no way to really truly understand kind of the heart of what the issue is or what the community is saying, unless you're able to kind of categorize all of this chatter into word clouds and charts and graphs. People think that they have the finger on the pulse, but they don't. They have an instinct. Oh, I think this is the reason, but they don't have the data to prove it.
It does make deriving meaning from all that quite hard sometimes. I must imagine. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for talking to me today. I really appreciate it. It was very insightful. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
No problem at all. And thank you today for our audience who have tuned in to catch this video. And there's plenty of other need to know videos out there on Ukie TV channel on YouTube. And thank you for enjoying this one and more soon. Thank you so much.